Morning Wake Up 1320 WILS. Here at the 600 West Kavanaugh empire of broadcasting, there are people who do sales, and they go out every day, our account executives, and they talk to people about radio, about broadcasting. And they do a pretty good job of it. And in a lot of ways, the field hasn't changed, but in a lot of ways it has, because there's a different mindset out there, some of it age-generated, in how you interact with clients or, here, potential clients. And what was like verboten a few years ago, maybe you do stuff over digital, send a text, maybe you're Snapchatting to a potential client. You can do that now with some, others not so much. It's changing. In fact, you know that by 2020, 46% of the people we call professionals in the U.S. are going to be part of the millennial generation and not the boomers. It's changing rapidly. Jerry Acuff, sales and leadership analyst, is with us to discuss this morning. Jerry, good morning.
Morning, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing good. Appreciate you being here. Thank you. It is. I always say that you can learn a lot from somebody by meeting them in person. To me, a handshake, eye contact, and some genuine communication goes a long way. But not everybody agrees with that. It is changing, isn't it?
It is changing, and I think the biggest reason it's changing is because of technology. And what's happened is that the amount of one-on-one human contact that millennials have experienced is just dramatically different than what other generations have experienced. I mean, before, when you didn't have, technology, you didn't have Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and all those things. And so you had to build relationships one-on-one. How'd you get to know somebody? You went and met with them, and you asked them some questions, and they talked to you, and you talked to them. And in that process of talking to one another, you could build a relationship. Nowadays, everything is done in a completely different way, especially with millennials, where it's more important that I have people following me on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, have 250, 500, 1,000 people, follow me on Facebook. And all of those relationships are way different than the kind of relationships that we've historically built. So I still think that my advice to millennials is you have to understand that if you want to build a valuable business relationship with somebody that you don't naturally connect with, and I've written 3 books about that, it requires human contact. And even though that's not what your experience is because of the way you've been raised with technology, it is what will be required to be successful in the workforce.
Well, and Jerry, do you approach it like this? I mean, to an old dog like me, you could say, Dave, you could up your game by increasing your digital presence here, there, and everywhere. And I would probably agree with you. But to a millennial, you might say, against other millennials who are doing what you do right now, this personal approach, in addition to what you do, is what's going to set you apart and set you above your competition. Is that a fair approach?
It's not only fair, it's brilliant. I mean, the reality is, what creates success in life? To me, it's fundamentally 2 things. It's number one, it's being a performer. It's being someone who people can count on to be incredible at what they do. And it doesn't matter what you do, you need to be incredible at it if you want to have job security. But being a performer without a meaningful business relationships where people can help you succeed means that nobody knows who you are. And so it's this combination of intentionally in a disciplined way building a network that's really, really meaningful. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I go to Northern Illinois University, and I was going over there, and I was trying to make a point about relationship building because I have 3 hours with these students. And I wanted to make a point that, what you have is technology you ought to be using differently. So, for example, I found somebody who connected with me on LinkedIn that I was going to meet. I'd never met her before. And while I was flying to Chicago, I looked on the internet to see what I could find out about her. And I had learned this from my mentor. One of my mentors is a 32-year-old millennial who's an expert in digital marketing, and she had told me, you got to use the internet to find out about people. Well, when I met this young woman, I knew 12 things about her. I knew her cell phone number, her email address. I knew where she went to high school, where she went to college, the award she won. I knew her mother's name, her mother's anniversary, her sister's name, her sister's boyfriend's name, where her sister went to college. I learned all of that.
In another era, Jerry, in another era, you would have been called a stalker. And now you're just doing your due diligence.
Exactly. If I'm going to meet somebody, see, here's what's different. Before, when you and I would meet somebody, we'd learn about them when we met them. Now we can learn about them before we meet them, and if we're strategic and smart about it, we won't come across as a stalker. We'll plant or think about questions that we can ask to let them know that, hey, I've approached this with some degree of seriousness because I've done my due diligence to learn about you.
By the way, people listening, this isn't just about sales. Look, you want to apply for a job and go interview, you ought to be doing these same things too. These are ways that you can avoid standard pitfalls, and I don't just mean that you get from ordinary conversation. I just mean areas that you could maybe really set your foot on a landmine and you could avoid. The other stuff just comes. There's still a certain amount of trial and error to this world. But what did you get out of your 3 hours? So you met with them and you talked to these students, these millennials at Northern Illinois for 3 hours. Did you win anyone's opinion over during that time?
Well, they've been using my book there for about 12 years on the relationship edge in business. And,
all right.
And this is actually a group that wants to be in sales. So it's actually the purest audience that I present to because every person there actually thinks I know more than they do. When I go present to clients, half the people in the audience think they know more than I do, and probably 80% of those are right. And so, what I get out of it is faith in this generation, because there are a ton of unbelievably hardworking, ambitious, talented people that we're turning this world over to, and we're going to be in pretty good shape in spite of what everybody says.
I think that's great to hear overall, and I think it is. When you look down the line, if there are ways to marry these two, rather divergent opinions about sales and leaderships and personal approach, I think down the road that we'll all be the better for it because man, millennials have a lot of good things to teach us, especially about the digital world and how to maneuver through that. And other people can really add something in to make them more valuable with a different perspective. Old school can be the right school depending on the situation. Many times it is. Jerry, what's the book and where do you find it? Give us the 411 on that.
The Relationship Edge in Business, you can buy it on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com. And it's, or you can go to my website, which is www.deltapoint.com, which is the name of the company that I own.
I remember, good stuff overall. Jerry, I do remember this being in public service before when I would have people come in and bid. You could have 3 different people. That was the minimum. You got 3 different people bidding. Their bid is almost the same or they're almost identical, and they give you some leeway. Who are you going to go with? You can go with the person that you like a little better. There's a better vibe, and sometimes that's the person frequently who did a little more work to find out how to create that good, solid, foundational relationship. That really hasn't changed much with time, has it?
Yeah, and the reality is that we can teach them that.
Yeah, good stuff. Jerry Acuff, sales leadership analyst here. Boomers, millennials, and how the twain meet. Jerry, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
1320, morning wake up. Relationships are important. We're trying to foster them here on the show. I don't know if we're always able to do it, but I'll tell you what, every day we give it a right good go. 1320 WILS.